Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a few stories that I wanted to share with you. I'm also going to be talking about Jordan Peterson's book tonight, The 12 Rules for Life. Phenomenal stuff. I'm going to get right into it, but thank you so much for joining me. It's good to see you. My wife called me today. She was at Costco. She happened to come across Clearly Canadian. I don't know if you remember Clearly Canadian. They're the glass bottle carbonated water. They were really popular in the 90s, in the early 90s in particular. She had just this overwhelming sense of nostalgia that hit her, and she goes, should I get them? How much are they? They're $25 for 12 glass bottles. And no, we don't need those. Overpriced. Our kids are going to like the idea of having them. $2 bottle of flavored water that they're going to sip on and then leave sitting around the house. So no, we didn't get them. But the thing that was funny about it, when I was a kid, I used to go with my friend at church. His dad was the pastor, and in the offices, they had Clearly Canadian. It was always a big deal if you could go back, almost like a green room. It's so cool to sit back there and drink your Clearly Canadians. But I never asked if I could have one. There were other friends of mine who would go back there. They would always ask for Clearly Canadian and strawberry or whatever flavor they got. And I would always have this thought, I wish that they would offer me a Clearly Canadian. And I never asked. That was the difference between me and the other friends who always got them. My friend who was the pastor's son, he may or may not remember to offer one to me. But if I would have asked, I'm sure he would have given me one. I'm recounting this story to my wife. She starts laughing and she says, our kids would always ask. Of course they would. And my nieces and nephews would always ask too. Kids by nature will ask. They are always going to ask. The difference is they are conditioned to not ask. And what is that conditioning? Sometimes you may look in your life and wonder why other people have things. Why did they get that? And maybe it's because they just ask. I can't say definitively why I was conditioned not to ask. Ultimately, it boiled down to two things. One, I was either shamed whenever I asked for something, or I was ashamed of it. Or two, I had just been told no enough that I couldn't really feel like I would ever get a yes. I don't know if you have that same problem where you don't want to ask for things because you've been conditioned not to ask, but I want to challenge you to stop asking, if that makes sense. Start asking. Stop playing through that narrative in your mind that stops you from asking for something, whether it's because you don't want to face rejection again, if it's because you have felt bad, shamed, whatever the reason is for not asking, you're doing yourself a disservice by not asking. Today, I actually got an email from an optometrist. They were touting about a 40% off sale they were having. It's only for a certain amount of time. I actually need to go to the optometrist because I need a new prescription. I called to make an appointment. The only appointment they had was after this sale had ended. And man, that's frustrating. And she put me down on the calendar for the appointment, and I just nonchalantly complained about it, thinking that she might offer something, and she never did. And I just stopped and I said, tell you what, before we go, what can I do to get this benefit, the 40% off? Can I prepay right now for the full glasses, or whatever it is that I need to pay to get the 40% off, or can you extend it? And she paused like nobody had asked her, but she had actually told me at the beginning of the call that they had already booked up through that time period they had allotted for the sale. So I wondered, is anybody else asking? Because I'm sure other people are getting this email and they're calling and asking for some, an appointment to see them in hopes of getting that benefit. But I also wonder how many people are not going to get that 40% off because they didn't ask. That reminds me, have you subscribed to the channel yet? If not, you really should. That brings me to the Jordan Peterson piece of the episode I'm going to read tonight. It's a little bit lengthy, but stay with me. I promise you it's really good. If you are like most people, you don't often think about lobsters. Scientists have been able to map the neural circuitry of lobsters very accurately. Lobsters have more in common with you than you might think, particularly when you're feeling crabby. Lobsters live on the ocean floor. They need a home base down there, a range within which they can hunt for prey and scavenge around for stray edible bits and pieces of whatever rains down from the continual chaos of carnage and death far above. They want somewhere secure, where the hunting and gathering is good. They want a home. This can present a problem since there are many lobsters. What if two of them occupy the same territory at the bottom of the ocean at the same time and both want to live there? What if there are hundreds of lobsters all trying to make a living and raise a family in the same crowded patch of sand and refuse? I wondered why that didn't make sense. That's not refused, it's refuse. Let's try that again. What if there are hundreds of lobsters all trying to make a living and raise a family in the same crowded patch of sand and refuse? Refuse. Because territory matters, and because the best locales are always in short supply, territory seeking among animals produces conflict. Conflict in turn produces another problem: how to win or lose without the disagreeing parties incurring too great a cost. This latter point is particularly important. Over the millennia, animals who cohabit with others in the same territories have in consequence learned many tricks to establish dominance while risking the least amount of possible damage. A defeated wolf, for example, will roll over on its back, exposing its throat to the victor, who will not then deign to tear it out. The now dominant wolf may still require a future hunting partner, even one as pathetic as a now defeated foe. Bearded dragons, remarkable social lizards, wave their front legs peaceably at one another to indicate their wish for continued social harmony. Oh, hey, I'm a friend. I'm a bearded dragon. Such behavior is endemic in the community of living things. It kind of looks like us waving. Bye, buddy. Hope you find your dad. Lobsters. Sorry, lobsters, not narwhals. Lobsters scuttling around on the ocean floor are no exception. If you catch a few dozen and transport them to a new location, you can observe their status-forming rituals and techniques. Each lobster will first begin to explore the new territory, partly to map its details and partly to find a good place for shelter. The lobster needs a safe hiding place to rest, free from predators and the forces of nature. As lobsters grow, they molt or shed their shells, which leaves them soft and vulnerable for extended periods of time. However, there may only be a small number of high-quality shelters or hiding places in each new territory. They are scarce and valuable. Other lobsters continually seek them out. This means that lobsters often encounter one another when out exploring. Researchers have demonstrated that even a lobster raised in isolation knows what to do when such a thing happens. It has complex defensive and aggressive behaviors built right into its nervous system. It begins to dance around like a boxer, opening and raising its claws, moving in, moving forward, back, side to side, mirroring its opponent, waving its open claws back and forth. At the same time, it employs special jets under its eyes to direct streams of liquid at its opponent. Ooh, I'm glad we don't do that one. The liquid spray contains a mix of chemicals that tell the other lobster about its size, sex, health, and mood. Sometimes one lobster can tell immediately from the display of the claw size that it is much smaller than its opponent and will back down without a fight. The chemical information exchanged in the spray can have the same effect, convincing a less healthy or less aggressive lobster to retreat. That's dispute resolution level 1. If the two lobsters are close in size and apparent ability, however, or if the exchange of liquid has been insufficiently informative, they will proceed to dispute resolution level 2. With antenna whipping madly and claws folded downward, one will advance and another retreat. Then the defender will advance and the aggressor retreat. After a couple rounds of this, the more nervous of the lobsters may feel that continuing is not in its best interest. He will flick his tail reflexively, dart backwards, and vanish to try his luck elsewhere. If neither blinks, however, the lobsters move to level 3, which involves genuine combat. Mortal Kombat! I apologize. This time, the now enraged lobsters come at each other viciously, with their claws extended to grapple. Each tries to flip the other on its back. A successfully flipped lobster will conclude that its opponent is capable of inflicting serious damage. It generally gives up and leaves, although it harbors intense resentment and gossips endlessly about the victor behind his back. If neither can overturn the other, or if one will not quit despite being flipped, the lobsters move to level 4. Doing so involves extreme risk, and it is not something to be engaged in without forethought. One or both lobsters will emerge damaged from this ensuing fray, perhaps fatally. The animals advance on each other with increasing speed. Their claws are open so they can grab a leg or antenna or an eye stalk or anything exposed and vulnerable. Once a body part has been successfully grabbed, the grabber will tail flick backwards sharply with claw clamped firmly shut and try to tear it off. Disputes that have escalated to this point typically create a clear winner and loser. The loser is unlikely to survive, particularly if he or she remains in the territory occupied by the winner, now a mortal enemy. In the aftermath of a losing battle, regardless of how aggressively a lobster has behaved, it becomes unwilling to fight further, even against another previously defeated opponent. A vanquished competitor loses confidence, sometimes for days. Sometimes the defeat can have even more severe consequences. If a dominant lobster is badly defeated, its brain basically dissolves. Then it grows a new subordinate's brain, one more appropriate to its new lowly position. Its original brain just isn't sophisticated to manage the transformation from king to bottom dog without virtually complete disillusion and regrowth. Anyone who has experienced a painful transformation after a serious defeat in romance or career may feel some sense of kinship with the once successful crustacean. Now you may wonder, what the heck does that lobster story have to do with my clearly Canadian story? I promise you that it does. Because so many times we take a no as a defeat. If we try and go do something, if we try and sell something, if we try and ask somebody for something and we get a no, we can feel as defeated as a lobster who may have just had their claw ripped off. I want to challenge you because a no is not a defeat unless you let it be a defeat. A no may simply just be a blow in the fight to win, the fight to move forward in what you are hoping for, what you are fighting for. A no no does not necessarily mean defeat. A no may simply be a blow on your way to victory. Now, I'm not trying to be a super high man and, hey, yeah, go win. You're going to get everything you ever want. But what I am saying is fight. Stand up and fight. Don't accept a no as a complete defeat for yourself, because ultimately the fight that you are fighting is not against others. It's against yourself. You have so many things that can bog you down, that can beat you down. Just like the crustaceans, whenever you have a defeat, your brain can work on defeating yourself. But I want to challenge you to stop accepting no as a defeat, no as a sign that you aren't worth a yes. I don't know if you've ever done sales, but any type of sales, pitch, training, whatever, they're going to tell you need to get the no's out of the way. No's are going to happen, and it's fine. People can say no. No is not a problem unless you let it be a problem. Get the no's out of the way and keep on asking of others, asking of yourself. Recondition that conditioning, and instead of stop yourself from asking because of how many times you've been conditioned to expect defeat, to expect a no, to expect the shame, start asking again. Thank you so much for joining me. Like I said earlier, if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. If you like this content, give me a thumbs up. Give me something in the comments of a story that you've got that is similar to either my Clearly Canadian or maybe a lobster story. And if you liked this episode, click here so that you can see another video in the Dr. Jordan Peterson playlist that I've got. And if you are just looking for a random video, check this one out.